Rumbee's podcast. Rumbee's podcast. Yeah. Rumbee's podcast. What? Rumbee's podcast. Rumbee's podcast. This is Rumbee's podcast. What? Rumbee's podcast. Yeah. Rumbee's podcast. Oh yeah. I'm telling you that little one time was the time. You got it.
Hello, welcome to Rumbii. I'm your host, Rumbii. Thanks for choosing to spend your time with me. It's been over 2 years since the last episode, and I'm happy to tell you that I am no longer recording from under my duvet on my bed. I now have a fancy microphone, a multi-track recorder, and I redid the podcast artwork. I wanted to put more of my favorite color in there, green. And I also wanted to put my face on it because I feel like people didn't know that it's a Black person making this podcast. Don't know why that matters to me, but it does. And so, yeah, there's new artwork. And my husband, Dean, helped me record a new intro song for the podcast. And I'm very, very proud to tell you guys that I completely produced that entire track myself. And it was scary. At first, I thought that I was going to outsource like I had before. The old intro to the podcast was something I found like open source, like copyright free. And it was nice, it was gentle, but it didn't have the personal touch. And I feel like that's the best thing about this revamping I've done on the podcast is that I am doing everything. Everything you see pertaining to the podcast, I have touched. I have put my own little spice to it, you know? And so I just love how silly it is. Like we were just having fun. I just got on this microphone and we're trying it out. And there's this tune that we had like come up with a few years back. And it was actually about my birthday. So instead of Rumbee's podcast, we were just singing like my birthday. And I really liked it. We recorded it on my phone. And I was going through all these old recordings that me and my husband have. And I found that and I was like, this would be perfect. And like it has the personal touch. And I really, really enjoyed it. It took me like a day to make that beat. I did use BandLabs, which kind of has like an AI support to like help you like start a beat. I did use that because obviously I'm not a producer. I have no experience making music. But because of that, it made it so much more attainable for me. And I'm very, very proud of it. I love it. It makes me so happy every time I hear it. I also now have a video portion to the podcast. The day after the podcast episode goes live, I will then post the video portion on my YouTube channel. I will link that in the show notes if you want to go check that out. And yeah, like and subscribe if you're into that. So I hope you appreciate that I spent a lot of time planning the return of Rumbii, the podcast. I have been enjoying learning all these new skills that I never had before. And I am excited to be back. So you might be wondering, why now? Why am I back now? And honestly, it just feels right. It just feels right. I've lived a little, I've cried a little, I've laughed even more. And I can now draw from those lived experiences and talk to you guys about it. And I also want to tell you guys, I think I found a name for you guys because I don't know how to refer to you guys. And I just want to say you guys. It's not very specific, you know. I'm going to give you guys two names and you can choose which one you want. It's basically roommates. You guys are my roommates. That's the European version. The North American version, which I recently found out, is roomie. I didn't know this. People call their roommates roomies here in North America. So, based on whatever part of the world you're in or your preference, you can choose whether you're a roomie or a roommate. So I obviously took an unexpected break from the podcast. And I think I was bound to take that break because I was in a deep and dark depression. And I remember at the time I was telling you guys that I was struggling with my mental health and I didn't have any support because I wasn't able to access any healthcare. I didn't have a family doctor, which is basically what you need to access any other form of support. So my depression got really bad. It got much worse since the last episode. And it got to a point where I was having really bad anxiety with it. And when I have bad anxiety and bad depression, I end up getting the symptom of psychosis. And at the peak of it all, it would have been the summer of 2022, end of summer 2022. I had my worst psychotic episode, and I'd had a lot through the summer as well. But seeing how my husband was reacting to the episode kind of made me realize that, okay, I am now at my breaking point. I need help. And luckily, a couple months after that, I was finally able to get a doctor. At the time, I had a therapist. I was seeing a private therapist, which definitely helped, especially having had such an awful episode. She was able to guide me through what I could do without any further help. And not only that, it was also just comforting to know that I had someone who could help, even if she couldn't prescribe me anything or suggest any medical intervention, at least I had an outlet with her. So once I finally got to see the family doctor, I was then able to access further healthcare, specifically for my mental health, and start on antidepressants. And I actually just reached a year on antidepressants a month ago, which I'm really excited about because it means that I'm in a good place and I am of sound mind and I'm happy. So, all that to say that I guess this is season 2 of Rumbii. We're back. And I never stopped writing, which is something I talked about before, that writing is something that helps me express myself, not only to other people, but also on this podcast. So I have a lot that I've written about. And I think that's why I'm also ready to share with you guys because there's so much to go through. There's so much to express, to share with you guys, to work on. And so with that, so where do I start? I guess, the best thing to do is to start where I left off. And that was sticking to healthy habits. And oh my gosh, I wish I could tell you guys that I've streamlined my life to this functional machine of productivity, but that's not the case, guys. I spoke about sticking to healthy habits and I left it on that podcast and never thought about it again. I I I have not been doing anything outside of like going to therapy and taking my medication. I haven't been sticking to any other healthy habits. In fact, I recently had to weigh myself for some insurance stuff. And yeah, oh, I have life insurance, guys. I have life insurance. That's how you know you're grown when you have life insurance. Oh my gosh. Being an adult, eh? I am fully an adult now. I'm 30 and I have life insurance and I'm married. Like, what? That just sounds weird saying that. But I had to weigh myself because they need to know like your weight and your height. And I was very shocked to find that I am currently the heaviest I've ever been. In a way, I'm not completely surprised because the medication I'm on does make you gain weight if you don't have an active lifestyle, which I do not. So I've gained weight and I am 30 pounds lighter than my husband. Like, what? That's 13 kilograms. How is this? I don't. It's really embarrassing to say, but it shouldn't be. So I'm going to say it anyway. I am 30 pounds lighter than my husband. I'm 5'8". My husband is 6 foot. And I'm 30 pounds lighter than him. 13 kilograms lighter than him. No, ma'am. No, ma'am. That's not good. That's not good. But I am not like upset about it. I feel like in the past, when I've fluctuated in weight, I have been like so dramatic about like, oh my God, I weigh so much. Or I can't do these things that I used to be able to do because I'm not active and I've gained so much weight. This time around, I feel like there's a sense of maturity attached to the reaction because when I saw the weight, it didn't cause like a visceral reaction. I didn't feel it in my body. Like I didn't have a panic attack about it. I didn't spiral about it. It was just kind of like, oh yeah, that makes sense. I wasn't irrational about it. And I think that's probably the healthiest way to go about it because I was able to kind of look at my lifestyle, look at the things that I've done and the things that I haven't done. And I'm able to say, well, yeah, it makes sense why I have gained this much weight. I don't exercise regularly. I've been eating any and everything. And also, the foods here just have more calories in them. Portion sizes are bigger, and I drink calories now. Like beverages that would hardly have any calories when I was back in England now have sometimes 10 times the amount of calories. And so even if I think that I'm being moderate, I'm still consuming more calories than I used to back in England. So there's been a huge adjustment to that, which has meant that obviously the best way to like avoid that is to just eat healthy. My doctor suggested that I speak to our dietitian, and I'll be doing that. And she said so because my cholesterol has gone up. And so all those things, having them in mind and then seeing my weight, because I hadn't weighed myself in like a year. So then seeing my weight, it was like, oh, okay. All right. This all makes sense. So at least like I have a plan. Like I said, I'm seeing a dietitian next month. So I somewhat have a plan. And also I spent the last year focusing on my mental health. And the plan was focus on the mental health for a year. And then after that year, we focus on the physical health. So again, seeing that weight wasn't so shocking because it was like, well, I've already got a plan, first of all. And second, I know that I have done things that have led me to this point. Another thing I want to tell you is I was diagnosed with PCOS in October of 2016. Because I remember the day I went to the doctor was like the first day of uni. And like I had the appointment before my first lecture. So that's why I know exactly the month. But since then, and I think I'd say up until maybe 2 months ago, I never adjusted my lifestyle and my diet to the fact that I have PCOS. I just knew that I have PCOS and I was just like, okay, and kept it moving. And I kept eating foods that don't go well with my body. They help me gain weight quicker or they exacerbate the symptoms of PCOS. I didn't care. I just ate what I wanted. And you know what? I was young. That's what you do in your 20s, right? You think you know best or you don't care most of the time. You don't care. Well, at least I didn't. I didn't care. I was just like, oh, well, I'm just going to eat what I want. So now that I'm 30, I'm at a point where it's like, I need to now start making choices that benefit me. And a good and helpful technique that I've been using is imagining my 90-year-old self. What's 90-year-old Rumbii going to talk about when she describes her 30s, when she describes her 40s, her 50s, her 60s? I'm now going to start doing things that I'm going to be proud of at 90. Because doing it that way, it's so much more attainable. You take smaller steps and there's no rush, right? Because a lot of times, especially these days, like there's so many fads when it comes to like diet and health. And I don't want to fall into those traps because they're not beneficial. If anything, they're more detrimental to us. So taking baby steps and like just telling myself like this year is the year of this and just focusing on that. Not having numbers or parameters or time limits, just saying this year you are prioritizing your mental health. And I did that. Like it was that simple and I did it. Like what? So this year, 2024, is about physical health. So I'm thinking about getting into activities that are beneficial to my health. Like this winter, I want to teach myself how to ice skate again. I know how to ice skate. I just have fear attached to it because I had a really bad accident when I was 12. And since then, I've been terrified of going on the ice. And living in Canada, like when I was in England, I could get away with it. I could get away with not going ice skating. Living in Canada, like babies here are born on skates and they just like they pop out and they skate off into the wilderness. So I can't be part of this society, part of this community, and not know how to skate because a favorite pastime of this culture here is to skate. So I gotta figure it out. And I'm gonna do that on my own. I want to document it and post it on my YouTube channel just to have that like tangible evidence that I conquered one of my biggest fears. So that's where I'm at regarding sticking to healthy habits. I think in a way I've changed how I thought of it before. In the past, I was very focused on like immediate changes. Like right now, change a habit and stick to it. But I think the only way you can stick to a healthy habit is by allowing yourself the grace to understand that this is a lifetime choice. So give yourself the time to develop natural habits pertaining to that thing. Focusing on my mental health was a desperate thing I had to do. I had no choice but to because I was in the pits. And so my habits were imposed because, of course, I had to reach out to psychiatrists and do therapy. I did group therapy. I did a 6-week group therapy program. It was intense. It was so intense, but it taught me so much lifelong skills, how to put myself first, how to advocate for myself, how to find pride in putting yourself first. And I think that slight change in mentality over a long period of time is what's gotten me right now to a point of being ready to now focusing on my physical health. I do want to update you guys on life. I think the biggest update that I want to talk about is that I now have a dog. I became a dog parent. Dean and I got a Dalmatian and her name is Nala. We got her on February 1st of 2022. So this year we'll make it 2 years with her. We got her when she was a year and a half. So she's now been with us longer than she was without us, which is a very comforting feeling because she's truly our dog now. We rescued her. She lived with another dog that was not nice to her, and she has the scars to tell. She has a chunk of her ear chewed off. She has scars all on her back legs and on her paws because I guess the dog that she lived with would just like nip at her. She has a lot of anxiety, which honestly, when the vet diagnosed her, I was actually happy because it's something that I have experience with. So at least I know how to protect her and cater to her needs because I am also an anxious girly. So I feel very blessed to have her in our lives. She's definitely increased our physical activity. Like I said, I'm not a very active person, and having her in our lives and having to walk her means I'm going out there and using my body. And she's, I think, in like the top 10 of like the highest energy dogs. So before she turned 3, we would have to take her on at least a 2-hour walk each a day. And that really allowed me to have a lot more structure. Just having her really has allowed me to have a lot more structure because there's specific things that she needs at specific times. And I really struggled with that. Like outside of work and school, I really struggled with creating structure and routine for myself. And she's kind of helped with that. Obviously, dog ownership is a huge decision. Dean and I spent years thinking about getting a dog, and we were very lucky that we were able to get her when we're ready to have a dog. I know sometimes it's not always that easy. I want to focus on what it's like to be depressed and owning a dog because so much research on the internet talks about how beneficial it is to have a pet. Dogs improve your lives. There's so many bonuses to like pets when it comes to your mental health. But I want to talk about the negatives, the stuff that nobody else talks about, how my life has been impacted negatively by owning a dog. And this is not to say that I don't want a dog. I don't want to have a dog. No, I love her. She's my world. I I cannot even imagine life without her anymore because she's just the best. She's my dog. But I'll be remiss if I didn't express that. And that's what this podcast is about, right? Talking about the things that might not necessarily want to talk about. So the hardest moments for me are the days that I am severely depressed, the bad mental health days where I just want to sleep or lay in bed. I think I've had a lot of those days since we got Nala. But I want to talk to you about the first 2 times I had those days. I lacked the ability to care for her with simple tasks like feeding her or taking her on a walk. Like that was really hard for me. And I'm sure that she naturally could tell that something was wrong because I was distant. I was very distant. I couldn't even like pet her or give her cuddles. This affected her a lot because she became even more needy. She was very, very needy. And the more I pushed her away, the more she would just like whine and cry about it. And obviously, this just made things worse for me because now I'm seeing that my dog is missing out on something and she's showing that, and it's because of me. That really sucked. That really, really hurt. I was wrecked with guilt. It was a rough time. It was a really, really rough time. And my negative thinking just got much worse. I felt awful because I couldn't care for myself, let alone my dog, my baby girl. I felt as though I was neglecting her. Luckily, though, in those moments, Dean was able to step in and help. When it happened the second time, I did what I naturally do, which is a lot of introspection. I feel like that's like my superpower. I'm very good at self introspection. And I had to face the reality that I am her keeper, I am her shelter, I am her food, and I am her safety. She looks to me for everything. And if I shout her out, she will never understand why. And that was tough. That was really, really tough. So I figured, why don't I share these low moments with her? Instead of shutting her out and isolating myself, why not bring her into the room with me and have her see what it's like for me? She immediately understood what was happening and chose to just stick around and occasionally come to my side of the bed and give me some cuddles. It actually helped me sleep. I'd been struggling with sleep so much at the time that her constant checking in allowed me to just slip into a restful slumber. And when I woke up, she was curled up right beside me. Initially, I freaked out because dogs are not allowed on the bed in this household. Like, what? we don't share the bed with the dog. And right after that initial freak out, I realized that she was being there for me. It was so sweet. I felt very lucky to have such a special little girl who understood that I needed her love. So now she's my depression buddy. It sounds silly, but she fully understands that her parents sometimes gets really sad. So she comes in for cuddles and naps. As nice as that is, I'd also like to reiterate that being depressed and having a pet is very difficult. It will take a toll on your health. Yes, there are many, many benefits to having a pet and to helping your mental health. But there's also the reality of when you are at your worst, especially if you're alone, if you don't have a partner who can help you do the things that you can't do. So, yeah, that's the biggest update that I have. What else? I now have my permanent residency. That's right. She's a permanent resident. This was something I spoke about on the podcast because it was a huge source of my anxiety. I was so nervous because we moved here. I didn't have a job. I didn't really know how I was going to get my PR. It was a volatile time when we moved during the pandemic. There were so many like questions left unanswered when we moved. I was very, very anxious because, you know, there was always the possibility that I get denied or I have to go back to England. So it was stressful, but I now have it. And as of last September, I now qualify to get citizenship, but I'm not going to rush into it yet because, again, I am someone who stresses so much about things of that nature. And I just want to give myself time to mentally prepare because with citizenship, there's a lot to learn as well. And there's a test and there's the swearing in. So I've got to keep my anxiety in check, prepare myself for all these things that I have to do. I heard nowadays they do it online. My sister-in-law got hers recently and she was sworn in over Zoom. So I might have to do that, but there's also the chance that I might have to go in person and that's very anxiety inducing. So I'm just taking my time. I know other people would want to rush into it the moment you're able to qualify, apply and just get it over and done with. I get that, but I have my own way. I have my own way, okay? I'll get it done, but I have my own way. I don't have a job though. Haven't gotten a job, not a single one. And that's been really, really stressful. I'm not going to lie. Because I also want to provide for my partner. I also want to support him. And I just feel like I'm not able to do anything. Like, I'm at a point where like I probably have to go back to school. But like after having so much schooling in the past, I don't want to. I don't want to go to school. But I also have my dream, and I want to talk about this on here because I believe in the power of manifestation. And manifestation can come in many forms. And one of those forms is to just speaking it out loud, speaking something into existence. So I'm going to speak about this as much as I can. I already tweeted it out because I tweeted that I wanted a dog. And then a month later, Nala came into our lives. So I tweeted out that I want to be a radio presenter, a radio DJ, and then become a TV presenter. That's like my dream. Like, I'd love to do that. And that's also why I'm bringing back the podcast, because I feel like there's an opportunity for me to actually create a workload that I can showcase and say, hey, hire me. Hire me to be a radio DJ. I'd love to do it because I've been listening to some of these radio stations in Ottawa and I don't know, man. I don't know. One of my really good friends, Zainab, shout out to you, girl. She said to me, it sounds like the radio stations, because I kept saying they're missing something. There's something missing. And she was like, they're missing Rumbii. And I totally agree. They are missing me. I need to be at those radio stations. So that's my dream. My other dream is to also just be a DJ. I want to learn how to DJ. And I think like all those things go hand in hand. And yeah, this is the first step. I have no idea how I'm going to get there. I have no idea. No clue whatsoever how I'm going to be a radio DJ, how I'm going to be a DJ, how I'm going to be a TV presenter. I have no clue. But I am viscerally convinced that I will do it. I know I will do it. I'm so delusional about this. Actually, it's not even delusional. I'm very realistic. This is my plan and I'm going to execute it. I don't know how. I will definitely find some people out there who can help me figure that out. But as for right now, I don't know how I'm going to do it. But that's it. I'm going to speak into existence. I'm going to be a radio DJ and I'm going to be a TV presenter. So again, that's why the podcast is back. Because I need to get back into the habit of talking things out. And I also want to have guests on here. And I think that's something that can then showcase my ability to be a TV presenter or to host other podcasts or to host anything. I'd be happy to just host anything because I know myself. I know I am a bright, shining light and I want to share my joy and excitement with others. That's why I make this podcast. That's why I'm back. That's why I'm back, baby. So I really hope that all my guests that I've had in the past are able to come back and we can do like a sort of update on what we talked about, see where life has taken them because it's been quite a while. And like, I think it's just something fun to do, just to be able to have that concrete evidence of like where we were and where we are now. And obviously I want to have more guests. I've been making a list of like guests that are like ridiculous for me to even have my podcast. That I'm not going to share because that I'm too shy. That I'm too shy to like share with people. But I have this list of like, I have no idea how this is going to happen, but I'm going to get this guest on and we're going to just have a chat. Speaking it into existence. Speaking it into existence. During my time away from this podcast, I found myself doubting if I'll ever come back to it, which is funny because I'd listen to my old episodes and I would just cringe. I don't know why it would make me cringe. Well, actually, I do. It's because I felt like I was oversharing. I felt like I was oversharing and like there was like no limit, no filter. And it's like, why did I feel like I need to have a filter? Like, whose idea is that? Like, that was clearly not my thinking because I'm not the type of person that tells people to limit themselves. So why was I thinking that way? And obviously, it's probably someone who said something to me and it struck a nerve and I added fear to it and I just felt cringy. I just felt like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I've said all these things about myself and it's out on the internet. And I almost deleted my podcast, you guys. I almost deleted it. Oh my gosh. I can't believe I almost did that. But I didn't. Because I started noticing just how beneficial each episode was for me, especially at the time when I didn't have therapy or a doctor. I was all on my own. I was just working through my problems, talking through them. And it was very interesting to see that I had the capacity to be insightful enough to discuss my worries and concerns with my friends and whoever else was listening. And that alone is just, that's gold. To have that ability, that's my secret sauce. I was actively challenging the negative thinking that I was experiencing at the time. And that's a win in my books. I was crushing it. Like, I'm amazing. I am amazing. To be able to do that at the very worst point in my life, it's pretty impressive. It's honestly very impressive. And now when I listen back to my old episodes, I love it. I listen to them with a smile on my face because I am so proud of myself. I truly am so proud of myself. And I'm so excited because now I'm at a point where I'm so creative. I have so many ideas. My creativity is on the up. I'm making YouTube videos, I'm writing, I'm doing this podcast. Guys, I made my own intro song for this podcast. Like, what? A year ago, I would have cackled at you if you told me that, oh, you're going to make your own jingle. My brother-in-law, he's a musician. I was thinking of even asking him to like just do a little jingle intro for me. No, I did it myself. It might not sound the best to some people, but I'm very proud of it. I am very, very, very proud of me. And last month, the month of December, I challenged myself to try and make videos discussing mental health, giving tips, talking about things that most people don't really talk about when it comes to mental health, especially on YouTube. And for the most part, for me, it was there aren't enough Black people talking about mental health, you know? So I just had to be, this face had to be there amongst the people who talk about mental health. And I did it. I did everything I set my mind to. And I just couldn't believe that I've been able to reach this point in my life where I can think something up, not know how I'm going to create it, and still achieve it, still do it. I am a force to be reckoned with. And I'm telling you, I am going to be a radio DJ and I am going to be a TV presenter. Thank you to all of you roommates and roomies who have stuck around, returned, or are new here. I am so, so excited for the new phase of this podcast. I cannot wait to share more episodes with you, to bring back some guests, to have new guests. It's going to be fun. Stay awesome, be kind, and spread positivity.
Rumbee's podcast. Rumbee's podcast. Yeah. Rumbee's podcast. What? Rumbee's podcast. Rumbee's podcast. This is Rumbee's podcast. What? Rumbee's podcast. Yeah. Rumbee's podcast. Oh yeah. I tell you that little one time was the time.